Countdown to Kickoff is brought to you and supported by Saltire Energy, the global market leader in specialist drilling equipment rental. And also by Craig International, a truly global company with 10 offices strategically placed around the world. The future of global procurement is right here. Next up for the Dons, we welcome Motherwell to Pittodrie for a Scottish Premiership clash. It's 8th against 9th. Kick-off at Pittodrie is at 19:45 UK time. With a win on Wednesday, Aberdeen can climb above both Motherwell and Hibs and go into 7th position, with Hibs to come at Pittodrie on Saturday. It's all to play for. Hi everybody, a very good evening to you all. Welcome to Ali Beg ABTV here on YouTube. So this is a pre-recorded show. So many thanks to all of you who left your comments on my social media pages earlier today. I will do my best to read out the majority of those comments that came in earlier. So this is the preview show ahead of our match against Motherwell at Pittodrie on Wednesday evening. It will be Neil Warnock's third game in charge, his second at home, and it's another big game because once again, as we continue to say, if we've got ambitions of finishing in the top six, these are the types of games where we have to win. We have to win our games against, particularly at home, against the sides who also find themselves in the bottom half of the table. So it's a very important game. So tonight it's the usual. I will do all the housekeeping stuff and I'll bring you all the bits and pieces, all the stats, the figures, etc, etc. And then a little bit later I'll read out all of your comments. So let's get started by trying to predict the team news tomorrow. So as most of you know by now, after the Bonnie Rig game on Saturday, Neil was not overly impressed and, as he said, not overly enamoured with the performance. And he said that he was not overly happy with the performance of some of the substitutes that came on. So come, 7:15 tomorrow night, Wednesday night, the team news will be announced, and it's going to be very interesting to see if any changes he will make. I'm particularly intrigued. So let me give you the team that I'm kind of hoping he will pick. So I've kept Ross in goals because I think this is the type of game, again, where we get to see what type of backup goalkeeper he will be and how much competition he will afford for Kelly Roos. A flat back four, Jack, Richard, Angus MacDonald and Nicky Devlin. You could argue the toss that Stephen Gartenman could come in for Angus MacDonald, but let's see. Then again, across the middle, I've gone with the captain. I've gone with Killian Phillips, Connor Barron and Jamie McGrath to play out on the right. Again, you could argue the toss that Dante Palvaro could go in there. Then I'd like to see Leighton Clarkson play just in the hole behind Bojan Majowski. So that's the team that I kind of think would suit the game against Motherwell tomorrow evening. You may or you may not disagree. I'm sure that some of you would prefer to see Dante start, but I've got a feeling that will be roughly the team that he will pick. So let's see how we get on there. Just let me grab Neil's presser in for you. So he gave his press conference earlier today, just after training. And again, he made some very interesting points, particularly about Bojan Majowski, which I'll get to in just a moment. Just let me finish off dragging all the bits and pieces in, which will save me doing it a little bit later. There we go, almost there. Have I got that in yet? Where is it? There we go. And one last item, which I don't have room to fit it in, so I'll put it in a little bit later. So, as I said, let's get to the press conference. Let's do that first of all. So we have had two decent games to watch, two really different games, different pluses and different minuses. We're trying to find a way of playing to get the best results out of them. We've got to look where the goals come from. At the minute, It's a one-man band, and we have to try and get goals from elsewhere as well to take a bit of pressure off Bojan Majowski, which I thought was a very interesting line that he came out with from the press conference. Let me give you the stats. So did you know Aberdeen have won each of their last 3 meetings with the Steelmen, scoring 8 goals in the process, having failed to come out on top in any of our previous 5 encounters with Motherwell. At Pittodrie, the Dons have only lost 1 of their last 7 matches against Motherwell. Motherwell have failed to win in any of their last 10 matches on the road in all competitions. And finally, the man in charge is Kenny Clancy and the referee is Steve McLean. Sorry, that's a slight mistake. That should be Kevin Clancy, of course. Getting back to the press conference. Very interesting that he made those points about that we need to score goals from other areas of the pitch and not just overly rely on Bojan, which we're obviously doing at the moment. So, again, I would like to think that these things have been worked on in training over the past couple of days. It was also very interesting to hear him talk about Duke today, and where it's almost like he's now putting an arm around Duke's shoulder, and he was full of praise for Duke in his press conference today, which is really great to see. I worry for Duke. He is absolutely the shadow of the player that we had last season, and whenever he comes on, he just seems to be completely lost. There doesn't appear to be much confidence there, and he just seems to be running down blind alleys at the moment, which is obviously concerning. So I like the fact that Neil is sort of putting an arm around his shoulder and hopefully working with him in training and trying to sort of rebuild that confidence. So he might start tomorrow night. He might chuck him in again, just to sort of keep him ticking along. Will he play him beside Bojan? Will he stick him out on the left? Neil did mention about, he had to sort of change positions for him, which he didn't want to do, but was forced to do. And he was very quick to mention that Duke never complains, always gets on with it, and always does what he's asked to do, which is great to hear. So I thought it was a very interesting press conference today. So let me start opening up the comments that came in from you guys, because a lot of you commented about the team changes, etc., that Neil could possibly make. Derek Beattie said that I agree with Jack McKenzie when he said there's not enough leaders on the park. We should be looking to win every game as Aberdeen Football Club, but I don't see the drive, the character and sheer will to win with some players. Definitely not for the full 90 minutes. Personally, I'd make Nicky Devlin captain, certainly for next season. You need a winning mentality. Hard to create when we aren't winning many games. It's tough for Warnock as he has to work with what he's got. We are still weak in certain areas. Devlin and Majowski are the only nailed-on starters each week. It's a very interesting point. And again, I have to say, I think the most improved player, and I've mentioned it a couple of times before, is Jack McKenzie. And unless, injury, suspension, whatever, loss of form, for me, Jack would also very much be in that category of players who are now almost nailed on starters each week, because I think the improvement in him in recent weeks has been quite superb. Stanley Roddy said, usually you get a bit of a reaction when a new manager comes in, but I'm not sure this group of players are capable of that. No team are scared of us, so Motherwell will come dead confident of getting a result. A win for us will be a 1-0 with a goal from Bojan, then hanging on. God, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not confident. Come on, you Reds. Ian Bruce said, following Neil's last post-match interview, do you think the players will have been more committed in training this week, fearing their place in the side? I really hope so. Ian goes on to say, I just hope Bojan starts getting help up front and other players actually start to add goals, as the next 10 matches are critical. So you and Neil, Ian, are absolutely singing from the same hymn sheet there. Graham Watson has said, hope he actually carries out what has been said. Been too many managers recently critical of players, but they kept them in the team. Maybe that said more about quality of the squad at the time. You see, again, it's another interesting point because a lot of the players have come into press conference and said they need to up their game, they need to be better. They know what the issues are. We heard it from Barry so many times. Yet there was never any improvement on the park. What I like with Neil is his transparency and his honesty. And I do think he will give them all a really good shake because that's what they need. And I do hope that the players' attitude now is that they are in fear of their positions and they do have to up their efforts in training to ensure that they're going to be part of the starting 11 under Neil Warnock between now and the rest of the season. So it's up to the players to respond to how Neil manages them, not just as a group of players, but manages them personally as well, and whether they can take the constructive criticism on the chin. GW Findlater has said, think Neil has just said out loud what many fans, and probably those behind the scenes too, have been saying for a long time. Players who came with reputations like Jensen and Gartenmann in particular have just not been able to cope with the physicality and speed of the game. Motherwell will be smarting after their loss against Morton. We should have enough to beat them comfortably, but as we've all learned, it doesn't always pan out that way. Hope we can really begin to reset and gel as a unit. Come on, you Reds. Look, Motherwell always give us a difficult game at Pittodrie. We know that. We know what we're going to get from Motherwell, despite their recent lack of form and their struggles, particularly away from Fair Park. But we know what we're going to get, so it's entirely up to us to take the game to them, stamp our authority on the game early enough, don't give away possession cheaply, retain the ball as much as we can, and just get in amongst it as early as we can. So if we do that, we should be absolutely fine. But if we don't, they're going to give us a very, very difficult game. Gareth Mackey has said, good to see he says, hi Ali, good to see a run of shows and that you're looking well. Good man. Thank you, Gareth. You have no idea, feeling so much better. It's been 3 weeks now since my surgery. And yeah, just feeling 100% better. Still got a long way to go in my recovery, but absolutely well on the road. So thank you. I think Warnock has identified quickly his strongest players and might still be toying with a fit first choice 11. Again, he mentioned that in the press conference. He said if the players are not fit now by February, then they never will be. So he said he's not concerned about the fitness of the players at the moment. It's more about the tactical awareness and what's going on the pitch, about how they're performing. He's not overly concerned about the fitness. So I thought that was really interesting. Do you think he'll reinstall Roos and stick with a 4-4-2? I bet none of the players go to the toilet this time, just in case the captain's armband is up for grabs. Yeah, it was brilliant. What a great story that was, about how Dante Palvaro was given the captain's armband. If you missed it, he basically said to Rob McLean that Dante was given the captain's armband because all the players had gone in for their half-time pee, and Dante was the only one there. And because he was taking off Shinza, because he was the closest to him and the only player left in the dressing room, he decided to give him the captain's armband. I have very much taken that story with a pinch of salt. I think that story was told with a tongue firmly placed in one's cheek, because I absolutely don't believe for 1 minute that Neil picked his captain because all the other players were in the toilet. Not a chance. But in terms of answering your question, Gareth, my gut is telling me he will put Kelly Roos back in, but my heart is hoping that he sticks with Ross. John Dorwood has said, don't expect too much difference from the cup game, with maybe the exception of Morris being benched. Warnock always said he plays to the team's strength, and I know you mentioned this on the review show, but expect more long balls for Duke or maybe Hayes to chase. We have zero width. Morris can't cut it, unfortunately, and we have an inability to play through teams. I expect McGrath in for Morris and maybe Roos back and Gartenmann for McDonald. Would prefer just McGrath as only change, but we shall see. Either way, it will not be a pretty watch. Alex Wallace has said, He says, hi Ali, I think we should stick with Duhan in goal and we need Palvara and Phillips to start and get the ball forward to Bojan. I'd also give Duke a run on the right wing to see if we can vary our line of attack. Interesting thoughts, Alex. He says, come on you Reds. Simon Royce here, he said, I hope there are changes and we go with 2 up top. If I'm honest, I'd like to see Shinnie on the bench, Barron and Palvaro in midfield. I'd also make Nicky Devlin the captain, start thinking of next season, but also getting more out of the lads for the remainder of the season. Gordon Ritchie said, hi Ali, we have to go a 4-4-2 play, our strongest team all in their natural position, play them for a few games and see what that takes. And hopefully the Football Monitoring Board and Warnock are working behind the scenes to identify what players need kept and sort out the dead wood as we need stability. I have absolutely no doubt that they will ask for Neil Warnock's opinion on that as the end of the season approaches. I have no doubts that is what will happen. Scott Bowie has said, feel a narrow 2-1 win tomorrow night. Let's hope someone can step up and take the pressure off Miovski, who has been our only goal scorer these last few games. Think we will find out as well who he was not happy with at the weekend by looking at the starting lineup and by the bench. I completely agree with you, as I mentioned earlier, Scott. And the final note that came in was from Martin Smith. Martin said, I'm hoping for a back 4, but not sure which 2 centre-backs will play. Probably go with McDonald and Jensen. Then I'd have Shinnie and Barron in front of them, with 3 of Clarkson, McGrath and Phillips, with Bojan up top. Let Clarkson float just behind Bojan to play the passes. That could allow us to press high up the pitch, yet still have cover for the back 4 and push Motherwell back, and they'll make mistakes or play it long, giving possession back. He finishes off, Martin, by saying, and I coach Roos to catch the ball, or if not, make sure my defenders are ready to clear the parries. He gifted 2 goals last week with that technique. He did, sadly. Okay, so those are all the comments that came in. So thank you very much for responding to my social media post earlier today. One last thing to drag in. There we are. In the meantime, if you are not heading to Pittodrie, or if you can't get there, this is Dolly Digital's Red Matchday cover with Jamie McGrath on the front. And as usual, great interviews inside, fantastic features, our award-winning Red Matchday magazine. Okay, on this day, so I've done it over 2 days. So if you're watching today, which is the 13th of February, back in 1982, Aberdeen progressed to the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup after narrowly beating Celtic 1-0 at Pittodrie. John Hewitt scored the only goal of the game on 90 minutes. And do you remember it? It was like a half overhead kick, if you remember. If you type it into YouTube, you will see the goal on YouTube. And if you're watching on Valentine's Day, on this day in 2008, Aberdeen faced German giants Bayern Munich in the knockout stages of the UEFA Cup. The game ended in a 2-2 draw, and of course it evoked fantastic memories of 1983. What a fantastic game that was to watch. And finally, if you are going to Pittodrie, wrap up tomorrow night. They're expecting the temperature at kickoff to be 6 degrees. The temperature could drop as low as 3 degrees. They're expecting gusty winds, and they're also expecting possible light showers throughout the game. So as always at this time of the year, please do wrap up if you're going to Pittodrie. Okay, so that is us done for the preview show. So I will be back on Thursday for the review show. Got a couple of new bits and pieces coming on that show on Thursday, so look out for that. All that's left to say, as we always do at the end of the show, is the very best of luck to the lads on Wednesday night. Let's get another win. Let's get 2 wins in succession, and let's start climbing this table, because the incentive is there. As I said, to go above both Motherwell and Hibs. And then we've got Hibs on Saturday. We beat them. Then we've got a little bit of daylight all of a sudden. And then the aim would obviously be to push on from there. We're going to have a bit of a break, thankfully, after the Hibs game. So we don't play again until the following Saturday. So there will be a bit of a break, which is good. So it'll give, again, Neil plenty of time to work on the training ground. But what I'm hoping between now and then is that we've taken maximum points, we've improved our performances, and everybody goes home happy. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the show as always. Thank you for contributing, and I'll see you for the review show on Thursday night. Take good care of yourselves. Stand free. Delete. In you go.